But Joel Klatt, he does a terrific job. Big Noon, right? He's a Fox football, college football analyst. He does draft stuff for NFL Network there as well. Herb Street, my favorite, but like Joel Klatt, he knows what he's doing. He really is incredible. His podcast is also unbelievable as well. And earlier this morning on his show, he evaluated the 10 highest performing quarterbacks in college football through a couple of weeks. He had his top 10 going into the season, and he obviously made a lot of adjustments off that. And we're going to be breaking down his top 10 here on today's show. At number 10, he has Julian Sayin of Ohio State. And, lots of people, the narrative around Ohio State coming into this 2025 season was, you have two new coordinators that you have to replace with Jim Knowles leaving and, of course, Chip Kelly leaving as well. That was a big storyline. Your defense, all those starters, that loaded defense last year that won a national championship for Ohio State, lots of turnover there. I think there was a lot of belief nationally that they would be just fine and kind of just reload there defensively. But the big question nationally was the quarterback position. And I was saying that wasn't going to be an issue whatsoever. Julian Sayin can flat out play. He was a big-time high school football player in California. He was an Alabama commit, as we've touched on. If Nick Saban hadn't retired, he would be the starting quarterback at Alabama right now. But I really had no doubts in terms of whether or not he could play. Offensive line play at Ohio State has always been terrific. I can't remember the last time I saw an Ohio State quarterback getting lit up, right? Ohio State quarterbacks always have all day to throw, go through their progression with elite wide receivers all around. I think Julian Sayin has the ability to lift a mediocre team, and he certainly is not on a mediocre team. He's on a really, really good football team, the number one team in the country, and he's a really good football player. He needed to be on this list for Joel Klatt. I would have him higher up on this list because Julian Sayin is the real deal. Jayden Maiava of USC is at number 9 for Joel Klatt. This is kind of interesting for me. Nobody talking about Lincoln Riley and the Trojans coming into this year. Nobody. Absolutely nobody was discussing them. And rightfully so, right? They have certainly underperformed since Lincoln Riley got there. They had Caleb Williams, who won the Heisman Trophy, not able to get in the college football playoffs. So lots of games they should have won that they weren't able to do so. They haven't played anybody really on their schedule. They just beat Purdue. Okay, I get it. It's a conference opponent, but at the end of the day, Purdue, lots of turmoil there. New coach, they're still very much bottom feeders in the Big Ten at this point. But Maiava has been impressive through the first couple of games. I wouldn't have him on my list personally at this point because I need to see it against a higher caliber opponent, and we haven't really seen that yet. But Maiava lighting up the stat sheet, lots of completions. And, of course, he has a prolific head coach in Lincoln Riley who has done great things as a play caller. Definitely had his time at Oklahoma, right? The Heisman Trophy guys that he had, Baker, Kyler, Jalen Hurts was, a guy that had a Heisman type of season despite not winning the award, and of course Caleb Williams at USC there as well. Maiava, could he be the next great Lincoln Riley quarterback? Maybe. He's done a great job to this point, but I need to see it against higher caliber of opponents. At number 8, Joey Aguilar of Tennessee. He checks in at the number 8 spot on Klatt's list. Aguilar, his story is unbelievable, right? He was playing low-end football, right? And then he gets an opportunity there after COVID to go play for Appalachian State, does a nice job there, and he's going to go play at UCLA. And then you have kind of the controversy of the offseason as it relates to college football with Nico Iamaleava, former Tennessee quarterback. Aguilar was at UCLA, and basically the two teams swapped quarterbacks and traded. And I think a lot of people thought that Iamaleava was going to be the better player. UCLA is a disaster, right? Their coach has already been fired. They haven't won a game. And Joey Aguilar looks like the real deal. The beginning, particularly of the Georgia game, unbelievable. It's a guy that's old. He's played a ton of football, has that experience, but coming into that kind of environment at home with all that pressure against Kirby Smart, kind of the kings of the SEC there with the Georgia Bulldogs, and he played really well, particularly in the first half. Had that offense and that team out to a 21-7 lead. He fell off a little bit, missed a couple of throws later in the game where they really could have taken charge of the football game and putting Georgia out of it. Don't want to knock him. He still played a really, really good football game. He certainly belongs on this list. Joey Aguilar at number 8. A loss for Tennessee, but they're very much a playoff type of team. Obviously, in the SEC, it's going to be a difficult schedule. They got a ways to go, but Aguilar is certainly a really good football player and belongs on this list. At 7 for Joel Klatt is Rocc Becht. Rocc Becht is the quarterback of the Iowa State Cyclones. He's played a lot of football. I really love Rocc Becht. In that game against Iowa, he was terrific at the end. Becht is one of those guys that might not be having his best game, or the offense might not be scoring a ton of points necessarily, but late in the game, everybody on that team for Iowa State and Matt Campbell trusts Rocc Becht, and that comes through the TV screen as well. It's very evident how much they trust him and how much they believe in him, particularly late in football games, and he rose to the occasion, and he delivered for his football team in that game against Iowa. He's played a lot of football. Look for Iowa State to be a team to be reckoned with in the Big 12, and Rocc Becht certainly belongs on this list. He has done a tremendous job. At number 6, Tommy Castellanos. I would not have Castellanos this high on the list. He had an incredible game. Florida State's only played 2 games, right? Their second game was against a nobody. So really his evaluation process is what he did against Alabama. And it was sensational what he was able to do with his legs, the short area quickness. Not the fastest guy, but was very quick. And Alabama had all types of trouble tackling him, and he made some really good throws in that football game. Uber competitive type of guy. Talked all the nonsense that he talked in the offseason at the SEC media days and the week leading up to the game. He was talking. And he went out there and delivered with Gus Malzahn calling the shots for them offensively for Florida State. I need to see it more with Castellanos. I don't know if that's a performance against Alabama that can be replicated throughout the entirety of a season. He took massive shots in that game as well. That was kind of the game plan. He needed to put his body on the line for Florida State to win that football game. Credit to him. They were able to do it, and he was able to get it done. But Castellanos, I need to see it a few more times before I'm ready to put him at the top or at the 6th spot. I probably wouldn't have him in the on this list to begin with here at this point. At number 5, Haynes King of Georgia Tech. He checks in at the number 5 spot. Haynes King is a flat-out dog. No two ways around it. If you remember the last year with Georgia Tech where they went into Athens, a place, by the way, if nobody goes in and wins, we'll see if Alabama can do that in a couple of weeks. But he took that game to multiple overtimes, won the games of the year last year, and was literally a play away from winning that game. He is as tough as they come. His team has complete belief in him, and he ran the rock really well with a banged-up leg. He played the opener against Colorado, won that game with a run late against the Buffaloes. Was unable to play in week 2 with the injury, comes back for the Clemson game at home and was sensational. Ran it 25 times, made the throws. And the thing about Haynes King as well is they don't ask him to throw the ball a ton, but he did have to throw it against Clemson as the season progresses. I don't know if he's necessarily going to throw it all that much, but his floor is so high when you're talking about Haynes King, right? He's a guy that isn't going to give you silly turnovers. Guys that were on this list before the season that are no longer on this list in large part due to making silly mistakes. DJ Lagway has all the talent in the world, but he loves throwing the football to the other team. He's not on this list, and Florida has looked horrible to this point in the season. But Haynes King, he's not going to make stupid mistakes. He's not going to turn the football over. He can keep everybody organized offensively. He's a leader. He's tough. He's a dog. He'll put his body on the line. He kind of went viral for his pregame interview as he was talking with the College Game Day guys on Saturday. It was a noon game, Clemson, Georgia Tech. He was warming up, had the earpiece in as he was talking to him, and he was going through his full warm-up, throwing to all of his teammates, and it really was a great interview. But Haynes King's a dog. He has experience, and he absolutely belongs in the top 5. Look out for Georgia Tech. Maybe don't have the skill guys necessary to really compete for a national title, but Georgia Tech's a really good football team. Brent Key's a really good head coach, and Haynes King is a flat-out dog. Speaking of dogs, at number 4, Joel has Gunnar Stockton at that spot, and I would have Stockton lower on this list. He deserves a lot of credit, right, because out of anybody in college football, I would say that Georgia win is the biggest win that anyone's had to this point. Could you say Ohio State is the biggest win over Texas because they're the number 1 team? Yeah, but it was at home, and clearly Texas isn't as good as many people thought going in. But going on the road to Neyland Stadium, one of the best environments in college football, especially when it is checkered out the way in which it was, and especially when you're a young quarterback and you find yourself as a football team down 21-7 like Gunnar Stockton and Georgia did. He remained calm. He made big-time throws. The throw on 4th down that kept them in the game. One of the best throws we've seen. Definitely the throw of the year for college football. He deserves a lot of credit for that. He made some really big-time throws as they were coming back in that game, as Georgia kind of was just hanging around. Next thing you know, it's a tie ball game, and you have Tennessee and that whole stadium on their heels. I was impressed with Stockton, but 4 on this list seems a little bit too rich for me. Need to see it a few more times. Need to see some more consistency from him as well, and some more spatial awareness in the pocket. He was sitting back there holding the football, and then they come through and knock it out of his hands. Like, you just have to understand, if you're kind of standing still there in the pocket there for that long against an SEC defense, you're probably in a spot where you need to move or you need to get rid of the football. Gunnar Stockton, really impressed with him in the Tennessee game, and that's a huge win for him and his confidence, and I would expect him to only get better as the season goes on. But sitting there at that 4 spot, it's a little bit rich for me. Dante Moore, a guy nobody's talking about, Oregon quarterback. Oregon very much a perennial national title threat here at this point. They check boxes in the trenches, right? That's what you need. If you look at blueprints of teams in recent years that have won national titles, you got to be good in the trenches and you got to have a good defense. Ohio State, check. Michigan the year before, check. Georgia the years 2 prior to that, check. That's just what you need. Oregon's got it. Dan Lanning's got it, and he's also got a really, really good quarterback. He was the starter as a true freshman at UCLA. UCLA as a football, program, kind of a bit of a dumpster fire, but he was starting for Chip Kelly as a freshman, decides to transfer to Oregon and back up Dillon Gabriel for a season, and now he's back into a starting role here with Oregon this year. He's got lots of talent. He's a guy that I think a lot of people think have the ability to play good football on Sundays going forward, and that offense is a lot further along than it was last year with Dillon Gabriel, because Gabriel was a transfer. He comes in, he's got to learn it all and go right away. Well, Dante Moore was the backup last year. He was learning all that stuff, and he's really taking the next step. We'll see as they get into more difficult opponents. Bit of a slow start for him on the road against Northwestern this past Saturday, but he's a really good athlete, and he can make all the throws. Dante Moore certainly belongs in the top 3 here. And at the number 2 spot, I don't like him. A lot of people don't like him. But Carson Beck has been phenomenal for Miami to this point in the season. He absolutely belongs on this list. Joel Klatt's got him at number 2, and frankly, that's probably where I would have him as well. There was questions with Carson Beck coming into the year with the elbow, right? How are you going to respond after, he hurt it late in the year in the SEC title game, and he's starting in week 1 against a really good team in Notre Dame. How's that going to look, right? Moving the football, throwing the football, making all the throws. Well, he's checking all the boxes. He's got a good offensive line at Miami, and he's got skill guys too. I always thought he got a little bit too much criticism for how things went offensively for Georgia last year. He had receivers dropping the ball all over the place. He's got skill guys in South Beach and Miami catching the football for him, and he's played really, really good. Obviously, he needs to continue to do it. Obviously, the off-the-field immaturity stuff, that is very much there, but just evaluating quarterback performance, he's been really good for Miami through a couple of games this year and belongs at number 2. And who belongs at number 1 is definitely John Mateer of Oklahoma. No two ways about it. He was the darling of the transfer portal, coming in from Washington State. Arbuckle, the OC from Wazoo, comes in with them as the OC now for Oklahoma, and you've got to be really impressed with what he can do. Just Baker Mayfield vibes in Norman, Oklahoma right now. He can throw it. He's got a really good arm. He can run as well. He's a good athlete, and also just the mojo that he has. And clearly, even as a transfer, the entire team understands that it is his team, and they believe in him. And he was really good in the Michigan game against a really good Michigan defense. And Mateer certainly has to continue to string it together, but right now, he's got to be the favorite to win the Heisman Trophy, I would say. Oklahoma's got to continue to win football games in order for that to happen, but John Mateer really in a good spot to kind of cement himself as the best quarterback in college football, and I think right now he has to be looked at as that guy. As far as guys that aren't on this list, again, it's based on how quarterbacks have performed through 3 weeks. For instance, Garrett Nussmeier, to me, LSU's undefeated. I thought going into the year he was the most pro-ready guy to go out there and play on Sundays, but he hasn't really been great. In fact, the LSU offense has really struggled so far this season. And, as far as performing guys go, I guess you can't put him in the top 10, but as far as you need to drive late in the game, who do you want? Nussmeier, to me, is still at the top of that list. Guys that have fallen off a cliff, Cade Klubnik of Clemson, he was viewed as one of the Heisman Trophy favorites. Clemson was a national title contender, and he was going to be perhaps the number 1 overall pick for Clemson. And offensively, it has been bad for them. And it kind of was a slow start for Klubnik since he became the starter at Clemson. High-profile guy, 5-star guy. I think a lot of people thought he'd come in and have tremendous success at Clemson. It took him a little bit. And then it finally started getting going late last year. Clemson went on a run. They make the college football playoff. And then he, by the way, played really, really good against Texas in the playoff game. And I think that's why a lot of people were like, yep, this is going to continue into next season. And it just has not. They get a bit of a pass for how they performed against LSU. It's a good team, week 1, whatever. But then you go to Georgia Tech. and you lose that football game there as well. Again, we spent some time giving Haynes King a lot of credit and Brent Key a lot of credit and that team a lot of credit, but at the end of the day, you're Clemson, and you've got NFL guys supposedly all over your football team, and you lost that game. So lots to fix in Clemson. Can Klubnik get back to that spot? We'll see, but he certainly doesn't belong on this list now, and he was probably the number one guy on this list going forward, or at the beginning of the year. One guy that Klatt left out that I think should be on this list is Josh Hoover of TCU. He's now there with Sonny Dykes. He's a junior. He's been around a little bit. He's a really good player. And how he played against Belichick in Belichick's first game at North Carolina was really, really impressive. Nobody talking about TCU in the Big 12 as a potential team that is a force to be reckoned with. I think Josh Hoover and TCU are really, really good. I would have him on this list. Devin Dampier, perhaps a guy that could find his way on this list. After this week, the Utah quarterback, kind of a similar situation to the Oklahoma situation, right? Transfer quarterback, they bring the OC Arbuckle with them. Same situation here for Utah. They've had issues at quarterback since the injuries to Cam Rising over the past couple of years. They go to the portal, they get a transfer portal guy from New Mexico, and they bring his OC in. Utah, Texas Tech this weekend, going to be a tremendous game. I think Devin Dampier is going to really have a good game and will probably play his way onto this list, as I believe Utah is the team to beat in the Big 12, and certainly a dark horse national title type of team that nobody's talking about. Definitely a college football playoff type team, in my opinion. Also, like, Drew Aller's not on this list, right? People are looking at him as always going to be the number one overall pick. Yeah, Penn State's undefeated. Haven't really, had a difficult opponent yet. He's not on this list. It's been shaky for him. Obviously, Arch Manning not on this list anymore. DJ Lagway, who's we already touched on. Guys that going into the year you thought they were going to play a certain type of way, but it kind of have fallen off. Still time to get back in the right direction. I still think Arch Manning will be fine, but, these past couple of weeks, against teams that aren't good at all, he's been bad. And, if he plays like that when the SEC schedule starts, they're in trouble. Luckily for Texas, they have one more layup before they really get into the thick of things. But, Arch Manning is a guy that a lot of us like. I really like. I still believe in, but definitely does not belong on this list. And another guy, Sawyer Robertson. If he has another good game for Baylor, he could work his way onto this list there as well. But overall, I thought it was solid from Klatt. Again, to recap, Mateer and Beck are 1 and 2. That's just kind of where things are at. Probably put Dante Moore at 3. I'd bring Stockton down a little bit from that 4 spot. Castellanos, he has at 6. I wouldn't have him on this list. He has Sayin at 10. I would have Sayin more in the 6-7 range at this point. Aguilar certainly belongs on the list. Rocc Becht, and I would have Jayden Maiava off the list and put Josh Hoover into the list. But again, people talk about lists all the time and what have you, and I think sometimes it gets blown out of proportion. But I thought today was a good day to kind of spend some time talking about college football and breaking that down.